Hey guys, new disclaimer. I am not sure what's true or false in this video. I take gossip and tea from online, from magazines, from books, from word of mouth, from all over, and I ball it up together and I tell you guys a story. Now, let's get to the video.
Well, hello, my Scandalites and Says So squad. This is Ashley with Ashley Says So, and I am back with another old Hollywood scandals video. And before we get started, I'd like to give a member shout out. First, we have Sir Smiles Lightfoot. Next, we have Disney Cindy, Ash McCurdy, Spin Artist, Jazz M, Lil Taz HP, Read This, Rashawn Grundy, and Thomasina. Thank you guys so much for becoming members of Ashley Says So. And remember, if you are a member and your name has not been called yet, please do not worry. Do not fret. I will continue to give member shout outs the further I go along. Now let's go ahead and get into the reason that we are all here, honey. And today's video is going to be about one of the most beautiful but very controversial actresses of the silver screen, Miss Elizabeth Taylor. Let's get to it. Elizabeth Rosamond Taylor was born on February the 27th, 1932 in London. Her mother was a retired stage actress named Sarah Southern, and her father was an art dealer named Francis Lynn Taylor. Along with Elizabeth, Francis and Sarah also had a son named Howard. Now, although Elizabeth was born in London, her parents were actually from the United States, and by the time Elizabeth turned around 6 or 7, the family actually migrated back to the United States because her family was scared of war looming over Europe. Now, when the Taylor family got back to the United States, they stayed with some family, they stayed with some friends, and then finally they settled in Beverly Hills. And when they did, Elizabeth and her brother were enrolled in Hawthorne School. Now, life at this time was very normal for Elizabeth. It was going just like it should for a 6 or 7 year old. She was settling into her school, making new friends, but soon her world was about to be shaken up. And that is because people kept approaching Elizabeth and mostly approaching her mother, telling her mother, "Your daughter is beautiful. Where did she get these eyes from? Like, what did you do? And why does this baby have violet eyes? You need to put your child on screen." And at first, Elizabeth's mother really paid this no mind, but as people continuously stopped her and told her, hey, your baby needs to be on screen, then she started to think about it. And she used to be an actress herself. So then she thought that she might have wanted to live vicariously through her daughter, or at least that's what rumor says. Rumor says that the mother wanted to live vicariously through Elizabeth, and so that's when she started taking Elizabeth to audition. But when people asked Elizabeth's mother, when they asked Sarah, "Hey, why did you finally let Elizabeth act? Why are you letting her audition?" Sarah said, "Well, it's because, war is likely to happen everywhere, even in the United States. And if it happens, I do not want anybody to think that we are not from the United States. So I feel like her getting on screen would kind of ingratiate us more to the people of the United States. They'll look at us like real American citizens and blah, blah, blah." Sis, you need to come a little better than that, because that little excuse don't even seem right. Girl, go on. Whatever the truth may be, Sarah did indeed let Elizabeth start auditioning and start trying to act for roles. And finally, in 1941, Elizabeth did book her first movie role. And this movie was called There's One Born Every Minute. But this was a little bitty teeny weeny role. As a matter of fact, I don't even think Elizabeth was credited in the credits. She probably had like 1 second of screen time. So this was nothing big. And unfortunately, it would be her last movie role for a little while because casting directors did not like little Elizabeth Taylor. They felt like she looked too old. She was very beautiful, but her face looked like a grown woman. So she kind of scared the casting directors. They thought she was weird looking. Like, why is her face so grown and pretty and stuff on that little bitty body? No, when we're looking for a child, we're looking for an actual child. And Elizabeth just didn't match that. So they would not cast her for a while. But then about 2 years later, the heavens opened up for little Elizabeth because there was a movie coming out and they needed a female child actress who could speak with a British accent. And so Elizabeth is just standing in line like me right here, and the casting directors are like, anybody else, and Elizabeth just right in their face, and they're like, girl, anybody else. But they couldn't find anybody else, so they ended up casting little Elizabeth Taylor. And after this movie, MGM finally offered little Elizabeth a 7-year contract. But just because she had signed the contract does not mean she started to get starring roles right off the bat. No, she still appeared in about 4 or 5 more movies where she had unaccredited roles. She was just like almost an extra. So her career just didn't kick off like right then. But the heavens opened up for Elizabeth once again. There was another movie coming out, and this time they needed a female child star with a British accent and that could also ride a horse. And Elizabeth knew how to ride a horse, so she was cast in this movie, This movie was called National Velvet. And this movie turned out to be a huge deal for Elizabeth Taylor because in this movie, she was one of the stars of the movie. So audiences finally got to see this girl and just really glare at her, pay attention to her, and she blew them absolutely away. They thought that she was the most beautiful child that they had ever seen. They even had newspapers and magazines printing columns about this new beautiful child actress. There was one magazine that was like, Elizabeth Taylor is rapturously beautiful. I'm not even sure if she can act, and I don't even care if she can act. The girl is so beautiful. So like I said, Elizabeth Taylor made a huge splash. Now, although Elizabeth was very happy and very pleased with herself, her happiness was short-lived because she found out now that she was a star to MGM. And when you become a star to the studios, they start taking control of your life. So her parents and MGM started to control every single aspect of her life. And this was something Elizabeth could not stand. But for right now, she just rolled with the punches and she continued enjoying her shine. Now, since National Velvet did so well, now Elizabeth was being cast in starring roles in several movies. Every time you looked around, she played the pretty girl or the prettiest girl in the movie. She played the girl that all the boys would lust over and all of that good stuff. Like the movies really just did capitalize over her looks. And she was so big that while she was still a teen, she graced the cover of Time magazine, honey. Time magazine! While you still a teenager? The cover? Girl, please! Elizabeth had it going on. And so Elizabeth is shining as a child and a teen actress, and she's doing so well, and MGM is pleased with this, but they also know that if they could put her in an adult role, that she would be bringing in buku money. And so they do put her in an adult role. As a matter of fact, they gave her the role when she was only 16, and this movie was called The Conspirator. Now, let me drop a little T-bomb kind of early in this little thing, child, because y'all know it's finna be some mess. So anyways, like I said, Elizabeth is 16, and she is cast in the movie The Conspirator. In this movie, she plays the love interest of a man named Robert Taylor. Well, the actor's name is Robert Taylor. Robert Taylor is like 40 years old. Baby, the T on the street said the cameraman would be just filming a love scene, right? Or a scene where they're kissing or something. So the cameramen are just filming, okay? And then they would yell, cut. This Robert Taylor. Baby, when he turned around, this is all the cameraman saw. And yes, this is down here. So I'm trying to tell you that his pants were pitching a tent, child, 6-7 inches out. I don't know how big the man was, but all I'm trying to say is that yes, he had an erection. And this is just a 16-year-old child, so it was really just a mess. And in fact, they waited until Elizabeth Taylor turned 18 to put the movie out. Now, the official word about this is because the movie was about a Soviet spy and the Soviet relations were really bad at that time. So they wanted to make sure the relations between the United States and the Soviet Union were cleared up. That is why they waited 2 years to release the movie. But child, rumor says that they probably waited until Elizabeth was 18 to release it just in case Robert's little mess got caught on camera. When The Conspirator was released, I do not believe it was like a box office smash, but it was still very successful, and this was a great look for Elizabeth Taylor because it made it clear that she had successfully transitioned from a child star to an adult star. And that was not easy. It was not easy then, and it's not easy now. There are plenty child stars that have been on Disney and all kind of stuff, and they cannot successfully transition into an adult star. It's just that the audience, the public, will not receive them, will not accept them. Well, they definitely accepted Elizabeth Taylor with no problem. And let me tell you another reason why this was not an easy feat for Elizabeth Taylor. It is because when she was transitioning, it was the 1950s. And what kind of actress was front and center when it came to the 1950s? Who was the most popular type actresses in the 1950s? That's right, the blonde bombshell. So for Elizabeth to just come in and keep her shine, and baby, she didn't change nothing. You know what I'm saying? While everybody else was running to go dye their hair and do this and do that, baby, Liz said, I ain't got to change a doggone thing. Y'all can sit up there and get blonde-headed while y'all sitting up there all looking alike, baby. I keep my little black raven locks and my beautiful eyes, and I steal it from all of y'all. And that's exactly what she did. She held her ground. The only person that can probably come close to stepping toe-to-toe with her was Marilyn Monroe. So in the 1950s, Liz is doing her thing, baby. She is in her element. And rumor has it that she was not that great of an actress, okay? She wasn't really an in-depth actress, and they still say that today. You know, so she mostly floated on by her beauty, but it was okay. The studios didn't care because she was selling tickets. And speaking of her beauty, yes, it was a big deal, and yes, she was indeed very beautiful, but it kind of turned her into a fantasy. She didn't seem like she really had real human needs. She
kind of just seemed like a doll, almost like an apparition. And I hope y'all are getting what I'm saying. But the point that I'm trying to make is that she did not really seem like a real human woman. They didn't really look at her as like a regular woman, like one of them. That is until 1958. Baby, in 1958, Liz Taylor hit everybody with a heat wave, honey, and she set those tongues a wagging, child. Because that is the year that she starred in a movie called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And baby, she played a lonely housewife that wanted the D, sis. She wanted the D. And I know that sounds vulgar and in bad taste, but listen, that's just what it was. That's simply the truth. That's what her role was. Now, to be fair, in this movie, there were other storylines, and there was a little more added onto her storyline. But the main thing that people took away from Liz Taylor in that movie is that she was a lonely housewife and she wanted the D. And her husband, who was played by Paul Newman, was withholding it from her. Not only was he withholding sex, he was also withholding love and affection from her. And because he was withholding this from her, Liz's character, whose name was Kat, was just like overwhelmed with, this burning passion. She had this sensation in her loins and she just needed it. She just wanted it so bad. And so this really excites the common man because they are seeing their fantasy woman, Liz Taylor, and she is practically begging to be laid down. And then she really gets up under their skin when it gets to a scene where she's arguing with her husband and she's trying to let him know how she feels and, how she's just about to burst. And then she huffs and gets all breathy and she says, I feel like a cat on a hot tin roof. And honey, this really lights a fire up under the men in the audience. They all out there like, hey, bruh, hey, he better go ahead and give it to her. He better go ahead and give it to her, because if he don't, hey, I'm gonna have to take care of her, cuz. Them men was so hot, it probably was somebody crazy in their audience, child. They probably thought the movie was real. Baby, next thing you know, he on the plane butt naked, honey, flying to Hollywood. He's sitting up there asking the flight attendant for some peanuts. But on a serious note, the character that Liz played did definitely bring a lot of feeling and emotion into the men because she was just so hot. She needed to be hosed down. Every single man in that audience wanted to have the hose pipe to hose her behind down. So she became very real to them. She also became very real and very human to the women because there were a lot of women who could relate to that. There's a lot of women who want more love and affection and a lot of women who want more sex from their husbands. So she definitely did become a real person. And so after Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was released, this launched Liz Taylor into superstardom. This movie was like a critically acclaimed movie and it was indeed a box office smash. So yes, Liz has reached her superstardom, and then when she follows this movie role up with other big roles, namely the movie Cleopatra. Oh yes, could nobody argue the fact that Liz Taylor was now here and she was here to stay. And from there, she just kept going up, 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 and she was leaving other actresses in the dust, baby, like they didn't even exist. And so now that we've gotten this far into Liz Taylor's career, y'all know what time it is, honey. It is time to take a break from the career side of things, and it's time to get to this scandal and scalding hot messy tea. And this tea is so doggone messy that I got two things to say before we start. First thing is this: if you are triggered, offended, or sensitive or disturbed in any way by underage sexual relationships or sexual abuse, baby, go ahead and exit the video, child. I'm for real. Get out of here. What y'all doing still in here? So that's the first thing. The second thing is this. And I usually let this slide, but this video is so messy, like I said, I gotta make a point to say this. If you do not hear me say, this is my opinion or this is my feelings, that means it's not my opinion or my feeling. I'm just taking somebody else's story that was either told to me or I read about. I put them in my words and I tell you that story. Just because they are in my words do not mean that it is the way that I feel, okay? Let's get to it. First off, when MGM decided that Elizabeth Taylor was going to be their new child star, they put her on braces to correct her teeth, and then she had some baby teeth that just would not fall out. And MGM was not willing to wait, honey. Don't y'all know they yanked those baby teeth out of that girl's mouth? And then on top of that, they tried to dye her hair, they tried to reshape her eyebrows, and they told her that Elizabeth was a stupid name and that she needed to change her name to Virginia. Luckily, Elizabeth's mother stepped in and was like, hey, listen, y'all already done put my baby on braces, y'all done pulled her teeth. Baby, you're not finna sit up there and dye her hair, change her eyebrows, and change her name. And who the heck is Virginia? So that did not happen, thankfully. This next rumor is some of the mess I was talking about, honey, because don't y'all know that it's claimed that Elizabeth Taylor was only 12 years old when she had her first
sexual encounter, and this happened with another actor, a guy named John Derek, and he was 18 years old at this time. But check this out though, John Derek was not the only old actor to take advantage of Elizabeth Taylor, and some of y'all know what I'm talking about if y'all watched the Mickey Rooney video, but for the ones who haven't, let me tell y'all this. So Mickey Rooney and Elizabeth Taylor starred in the movie National Velvet together, okay? At this point in time, Mickey Rooney was away from his wife a whole lot, so she decided to come to the set and to see him. Baby, don't you know his wife got to walking on the set, honey? And she opened up the trailer door. All she saw was Mickey Rooney kind of sitting there like laid back. You know, I don't know what his face was looking like. All I know is that she saw him, then she looked down and she saw the back of Elizabeth Taylor's head, child. Yes, the little girl was down in Mickey Rooney's lap and she was doing things. Yes. And around this time, Elizabeth Taylor was 12 years old. Mickey Rooney was like 23, 24 years old. Now, regarding those last two rumors I told you, there is another rumor going around, and this rumor was actually written in a book that was based on Elizabeth Taylor's life. And this is one of those examples where I say it's not my opinion, it's somebody else's words. Well, yes, these are somebody else's words, but I'm definitely about to put it in my words. Baby, they said Elizabeth Taylor was fast and hot like a firecracker up her tail, baby. Said she was just hot in the pants, girl, trying to give it up to everybody. Honey, they said Elizabeth Taylor was out here chasing these grown men and trying to pursue them like a grown woman. And actually, to break it down some more, the reason that they say that she was like this is because it is claimed that Elizabeth Taylor was one of those teenage girls who wanted to be grown. She didn't want to be a teenager. She didn't like to be a teenager. She did not like being young. She wanted to be grown. She wanted to grow up fast and she wanted to do adult things. You know what I mean? She was ready to date. She was ready to wear those grown-up dresses. You know, she just wanted to live grown and beyond her years. And when it came to men, that is just what she was attracted to. That's what she liked doing. They basically said that Elizabeth Taylor would set her eyes on a prize and she would do whatever she had to do to get that prize. She did not care. And one of those prizes happened to be big-time movie roles. And at the age of 15, gossip says that there was a movie role that Elizabeth wanted, but she needed to go through a man named Ronald, and I guess Ronald was acting in this movie. So Elizabeth wanted the role, so she goes to Ronald's apartment to talk about the role. And it said that when she gets there, she and Ronald do talk, and he talks to her like an adult. You know, he treats her like an adult. He even offers her alcoholic drink. And while this may have scared away other teenagers, it said that it did not bother Elizabeth one bit. In fact, it said that Elizabeth felt like when he brought the drinks out, he really wanted to get it on, but he was too scared to make a move, or at least this is what Elizabeth thought. She felt like he wanted to do some things, but he was too scared to make a move. And so Elizabeth goes on to tell her friends that she basically let it be known. Basically was like, you know, boy, you done brought these drinks out here. I know what you're trying to do. You know what I'm saying? Just tell me, we can go get it on. And didn't say those words, but that she was putting out that type of energy or that type of air to let him know that it's cool. You know, we can do this. But it said that Ronald still would not make a move. So after this, Elizabeth goes on to tell her friends, because she was telling these stories later on in life, okay? She goes on to tell her friends that, you know, he ended up not having to make a move because she became the aggressive one. You know, she made the move. She climbed all over him. They started kissing on the couch, and they did indeed end up in the bedroom. And the reason that Elizabeth Taylor was still telling these stories later on in life is because Ronald was none other than future President Ronald Reagan. And at this time, he was married to actress Jane Wyman, and he also was supposedly in his 30s at this time. Then rumor claims there was another man that Elizabeth slept with supposedly while she was underage, and this man was actor Peter Lawford. And some people even go on to say that Peter Lawford was actually Elizabeth's first, but like I said, the other person said John Derek, so I'm not sure which of those is true. Now, as bad as all of this sounds and as bad as it is, this is what it said Elizabeth was like. This is what she liked. And they said even in her older years, she was still bragging about how she was irresistible at a young age. You know what I'm saying? How any man that she wanted to conquer, she conquered with no problem. In fact, it said in another conversation with her friends, she basically said, you know, I became the aggressor. As a matter of fact, I wish they had been casting for the role of Lolita. Oh, baby, honey. I would have won an Oscar because I was a big nymphette. Child. Now, it's claimed that Elizabeth Taylor could not stand the hold and the control that MGM and her parents had over her. So she actually wanted to get married. She started seeking to marry somebody at a very early age because she felt like if she married somebody, she would have more freedom. And that is true in a way, because if she did get married, the reins would pass from the studios and her parents over to her husband. But I need to make it clear, the studio would not give away full reins, okay? They would definitely still have a certain amount of control, but a lot of it would be passed to her husband. Now, someone who wouldn't have any control anymore was the parents. If she was to get married, her parents wouldn't have no say-so, because that say-so would definitely go to her husband. So Elizabeth, was seeking to get married because she just did not like the control that they had over her life. And the thing about this is I guess she started like telling folks that she wanted to get married early, and I'm pretty sure the rumor about her sexual activity had already got around, But the reason I say this is because out of nowhere, Howard Hughes' big old tail gonna sit up there and call Elizabeth's parents talking about, I marry Elizabeth, I want to marry your daughter, I'll pay y'all 6 figures if you let me marry your daughter. Boy, goodbye. And that's exactly what Elizabeth Taylor's parents said. Sir, you old as we are. What are you, big 40-year-old big box head sitting up there trying to marry our daughter? Boy, no. And it was good that they told him no, because Elizabeth didn't want to marry him either. Bye, Howard. And at that time, Elizabeth Taylor was only 16 years old. But the thing is that just because she did not want to marry Howard does not mean that she still wasn't like eagerly seeking to marry somebody else. And then finally, she did find somebody who wanted to marry her just as much as she wanted to marry him. This person was Conrad Nicky Hilton. And yes, I'm talking about the Paris Hiltons. Conrad's father was the owner of the Hilton hotel chain. Now, Conrad and Elizabeth got married in 1950 when Elizabeth was 18 years old, and MGM could not let the moment pass, honey. They were definitely not about to miss this chance for PR stunt. So they actually paid for the wedding, and they turned the wedding into a big, huge, grand affair. Everybody who was anybody had to be at this wedding of the year. If you were not there, you were absolutely square. It was a major media event. And Elizabeth looked like an innocent little flower without a smudge on her as she walked down the aisle very gracefully in her off-the-shoulder custom designed wedding gown. She gave all those pesky little innocent looks, and she batted her eyes everywhere. And someone would have easily thought that she was very pure, a bride who was ignorant to the ways of the world. And of course, this was not the case, but Liz didn't care that it wasn't the case because nobody else knew that it wasn't the case. And also, she was having a fun time playing this delicate little flower. And on top of that, she had won. She had beaten everybody. She had found a husband, and now that control was not about to be so tight. And no, she didn't know a lot about Conrad Nicky Hilton, but she did know that he was handsome, he had millions of dollars, he was very kind to her, and he had married her. But see, the problem was Liz had moved so quickly that she didn't really pay attention to the signs. She couldn't really see what was really going on. See, Liz thought she had pulled a fast one on the studios by marrying Conrad Nicky Hilton, but for all of you that are out there watching, if you are really into old Hollywood and you really research old Hollywood and all of this good stuff, when has there ever been a time when a beautiful top billing actress wants to get married in the 1940s and 50s and the studio just says nothing about it? When has that ever happened? That has never happened. Most of the time when those actresses wanted to get married, the studio would have a lot to say about it. As a matter of fact, they would start threatening the actress, start acting conniving. Child, they probably even send some thugs out there to beat up the new groom. So the fact that MGM said nothing against her marrying Conrad Hilton, as a matter of fact, they loved it so much they even paid for the wedding and used it as a media event. That means Conrad Nicky Hilton was the studio's man. Now, when I say that Conrad was the studio's man, I do not mean that somebody from the studio came to him and was like, hey, we need you to get with it. We need you to seduce it. Do it, son. Do it, son. I don't mean that. He probably didn't even know that the studios wanted them together. But I'm saying the studios got out of the way. Like I said, they did not try to stop her at all. And in her rush to marry somebody, she really did not know Conrad Nicky Hilton. She had really no idea about who he was and what he had going on, but she definitely was about to find out. Within the first few weeks of their marriage, the cracks start to show. Elizabeth notices that Conrad Hilton is a spoiled, filthy rich brat. He ain't got nothing going on. All he does is sit around and complain all day. And this is not the only thing he does. He also starts to drink. And when I'm talking about drinking, I'm talking about it's heavily and it's constant. He's constantly drinking. And so when Elizabeth sees this and realizes this, of course, she is horrified because this is not what she wanted. She didn't want a man like this, you know. And then slowly she also starts to find out that they don't even share the same interests. Like, they would never be together in another lifetime. Like, why are they together, you know? So this marriage is definitely a flop. And then, child, all of a sudden, a flip-flop went upside Elizabeth Taylor's head, child, because yes, Conrad Hilton started beating on her. And this right here, oh, this was too much. This is when Elizabeth was like, oh, hey, no, baby. I am not about to live the rest of my life with you jumping on me. Like, sir, you are doing too much. And so that marriage ended after only 8 months. Now, even though this marriage did not work out for Liz, she did not stay single long. And on February the 21st, pause, that's my birthday. Hey, that's my birthday, dog. On February the 21st, 1952, she ended up marrying another actor. This actor's name was Michael Wilding. Now, Michael Wilding was 20 years older than Elizabeth, and they actually met when she was 16 and she was working on that movie, The Conspirator. Y'all know that movie where that man was, that movie. So she and Michael Wilding met on that set, and even at that time, she thought he was handsome, you know, and she loved the fact that he was older, and she said she loved the fact that he was just kind of calm and collected, you know, so she was very happy to marry Michael Wilding. Now, Michael Wilding, on the other hand, was happy to marry Liz for a different reason. He ain't cared nothing about her being Elizabeth Taylor. He ain't cared nothing about her beauty. He ain't care about none of that. He cared that she was very popular at the time, and he was looking for her to give him a career boost. And so, like I said, they did get married, and surprisingly, their marriage went pretty steadily for a while. They even had 2 children, but soon the cracks started to show, and that was because Liz did indeed get what she wanted out of the marriage. But Michael, oh, baby, he ain't get none, child. He was in the camera for a little while after the wedding, but then after that, girl, he was not popping. Wasn't nobody checking for him. And so this became a reason for discord in their marriage. He was very angry that his career did not get boosted like he thought it would. You know what I mean? And then also that anger turned into resentment, and he was resentful to Liz. He hated the fact that she was still booking movies. She was still flying to the stars, and nothing was happening for him. So like I said, Michael became very resentful, and he and Liz would argue off and on, but mostly she tried to make her marriage work. That is until Michael took it way too far. So baby, listen. At this point, Michael and Liz are chilling. They are having a good time in their relationship. They are talking again. They are laughing again. And Liz is very excited about this. You know, she's just happy to be having good moments with her husband. But then something happens that shatters all of that happiness. Liz gets offered a movie role, and this is not just any movie role. This is a role for a movie that is going to be huge, and this movie is called Giant, and you know it's going to be huge because the other stars were James Dean and Rock Hudson, so you know it was going to be a big movie. So anyways, once Liz gets the role, I imagine she's pretty scared to, you know, tell Michael because she doesn't want him to get jealous or envious, but then she has to start shooting, so she has to end up telling him. So she comes up to him and she's like, you know, hey, I got this role, and Michael probably gives that little fake smile with his lips all tight. Well, congratulations, honey. I'm so happy for you. So he does see Liz out of the door, and as soon as she goes out of the door, I am pretty sure he lets out a huge scream of frustration. You know, he's just so jealous, so envious. He's probably throwing stuff around the house. I don't know. But I do know one thing's for certain. In his anger, he comes up with a plan to punish his wife. And what better way to punish a woman like Liz Taylor, a woman who's the most beautiful and the most wanted woman in the world? What better way to punish her than to make it seem like she cannot please or satisfy her husband? So Michael gets these thoughts in his head, and I'm sure he probably just starts to rub his hands together. He has got a plan, honey. And so Michael has a get together at their home, and then Michael gets on the phone and he calls some strippers to come over to his house and entertain him. And honey, he just sitting up there doing the motorboat, getting lap dances, all kind of stuff, like he ain't no married man. And somebody at this party tipped off Confidential magazine, and honey, you know this was some hot tea back then, honey. Baby, them folks just got on them typewriters and they got the clacking, child. They wrote up all kind of articles about Liz Taylor's husband, Michael Wilding, having to have strippers over at his home because his wife wasn't doing it for him. And so Liz is off on set filming this movie, and of course somebody comes to her, Liz, did you see Confidential magazine? Look what they're saying. And she is angry, as definitely embarrassed her. Now, rumor has it that they did make up, but Liz really just couldn't really get over it, so they ended up divorcing in January of 1957. It is clear that Liz was also cheating on him just like he was cheating on her with them strippers. Honey, in February, Liz Taylor was pregnant and married again. And her baby daddy and her new husband was named Mike Todd, and he was a wealthy film producer. So anyways, to move forward, yes, Liz has rushed to marry Mike Todd because she was pregnant, but the thing is that she and Mike Todd were a very, very good couple. I mean, their marriage was temperamental where they would fight and make up and things like that, but really Mike Todd worshiped the ground that Liz Taylor walked on. Mike was really a fun guy. He was very wealthy and he didn't mind spending his wealth. And as far as the things he did for Liz, he was very extravagant in his purchases, and he also would want the media to know. He would want to show off what he did. And just to give you an example of how extravagant he was with the things he did for Liz, he threw her a party in Madison Square Gardens, a very expensive party. Liz Taylor had 18,000 people at that party. And then on top of that, there's another time he bought Liz a Cartier diamond and ruby necklace with like the bracelet or the ring to match or something. I'll put the picture up there. Look at that stuff just a gleaming, honey. So again, very extravagant, very flamboyant, very showboaty. And I'm trying to think of a couple today that is like that. I can't think of one right now, but y'all probably know couples like that. If you do, leave it in the comments, like famous couples or something. So the fact that Mike Todd was this very exciting and very daring man that would live his life to the fullest and, you know, would show everybody a good time made him very, very loved. And that is one of the reasons that he got on a plane on March the 22nd, 1958. He was so loved and respected that he had been voted Showman of the Year by the New York Friars Club, and he was boarding the plane on his way to go accept his award. And in fact, Liz wanted to take this flight with him, but Mike Todd was like, no, you need to stay home. And she was like, how you ain't gonna let me board a plane that got my name on it? It's my plane. And she was correct. The plane was called Liz. It was named after her. It was his private plane, but he would not let her get on the plane because he actually wanted to take the ride with his friends. One of his main friends was Kirk Douglas, and he wanted Kirk Douglas to ride with him. And Kirk Douglas was going to get on the plane, but Kirk Douglas' wife was like, where you going now? You sitting up there always talking about you hanging with Mike and stuff. Let me find out you're going to see some other woman. You know what I'm saying? So Kirk was getting fussed at by his wife. So he called Mike and was like, listen, I can't do it. She fussing. She think I'm trying to see another woman. I got to stay home. So Kirk Douglas ended up not going on the plane, but this still did not leave Mike by himself. He actually got on the plane with 4 other people. As the plane was flying, it came over Grant, New Mexico, and it suffered engine failure. And next thing you know, the Liz was headed towards the ground, leaving everybody on board to suffer a fiery death. When Liz heard about her husband's death, she was absolutely inconsolable. Her pain was immense, and she could not understand why her husband, whom she really did love so much, was taken away from her. And her grief was unbearable, but that was okay. Liz did not have to bear this grief alone because Mike Todd's best friend, Eddie Fisher, was there with her to help her bear the grief. Now, Eddie Fisher really did turn out to be a great help for Liz, and she was just as much help for him because they both really loved Mike Todd. And everyone was so shocked and hurt and saddened by the whole affair that people encouraged them, to lean on each other, to help each other when needed. Even Eddie Fisher's wife, Debbie Fisher, was encouraging, Liz and Eddie to get together to talk things out. But then Debbie started to notice that in her time of need, Eddie wasn't even there for her. So, she's starting to be like, well, hold on, sir. You sitting up there being a little too much for Liz. You know what I'm saying? Why I ain't got a shoulder to cry on? And she was absolutely right to worry, because what in fact had started happening is that Liz Taylor herself had started to feel a little jealousy towards Eddie Fisher and Debbie Fisher. She started to feel like, why should Debbie have a husband and mine is dead cold in the ground? Why should he be with her? And because she got this jealousy inside of her, she started to request Eddie's presence every single day. So her grief was just so bad. She couldn't even get out of bed unless Eddie was there to comfort her. But as it turns out, she didn't have to get up out of the bed. You know why? Because Eddie climbed in the doggone bed with her and they got it on. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Liz had started sleeping with that woman's husband. And after this started happening, Eddie just never returned home again. You know what I'm saying? Debbie went from having a husband that would come home to her at night to this man just absolutely disappearing, just never leaving Liz's house. And let me tell y'all something. This is not a little regular side chick situation where a side chick is just stealing somebody's husband and the wife don't really know the side chick. No, it's claimed that Debbie and Liz were good friends. Some would even say they were best friends because their husbands were best friends and they spent a lot of time together. So she and Liz had plenty of conversations, of talks and walks and all this kind of stuff, and you've reached around and you've taken this woman's husband. And Liz and Eddie did some dirty stuff. And honey, when the newspapers got a hold of it, honey, it was a scandalous thing, child. I mean, it was terrible. The public couldn't believe that Liz had taken this woman's husband. And they also all hated Eddie. How could you leave your wife and your 2 little children to go with this woman, this homewrecker? It was a lot like Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, and Jenifer Aniston. It was a lot like that, but it was a lot worse because there were children involved. So Liz is now looked at like the total man-eater, but you know what? She didn't care, and you know how she proved she didn't care? Because not only did she take Eddie from Debbie, she married Eddie. And then they had the nerve to go to all these events, you know what I'm saying, all on the red carpet and stuff like that. Now, after everything Liz and Eddie did, they may not have cared and they may not have worried about how they look, but let me tell you something. Payback is a B, and honey, that sweet, sweet karma. Baby, she never misses her mark. You see, by the time Liz and Eddie got married, their marriage was already falling apart because Liz didn't really want Eddie. He wasn't even really her type. And what made it even worse for Eddie is that both of them got flack, but Liz's career really didn't suffer. And honey, in 1962, she was offered the role of Cleopatra. And this was really, really bad for Eddie Fisher because honey, as soon as Liz walked on the set, Eddie Fisher didn't even exist no more. Child, that woman probably went home calling him Greg, baby. He was so far away from her mind because, baby, Richard Burton was her new co-star. And Richard Burton at the time was hot, baby. Not only was he hot, he was everything Liz wanted in a man. He was older than her, he had money, he had style, and he looked manly. He actually seemed a lot like Mike Todd. They didn't really look alike, but they had that manly appearance. And now look at Mike Todd and Richard Burton, then look at Eddie Fisher. Does he look imposing like these two? No. And soon tabloids start to pick up on Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton spending time together, stealing away with moments of heated passion. And at first it was just little snaps and gossip here and there, but then the scandal really blew up when the tabloids caught them over in Rome. And when they went to Rome, they were all kissing and all over each other, and honey, it was just a mess. Even the Pope piped in and said something to the effect of, hey, y'all need to take all that immoral sin stuff and get back over to the U.S. Don't be trying to come over here to Italy and do all y'all little messy stuff. Baby, you need to get up out of here. And so with the Pope even saying this, you know their affair became a huge deal. And then the media gave them their own little nicknames. It was no longer Elizabeth and Richard. It was now Liz and Dick. You know what I'm saying? They were the super couple. And so can you imagine the humiliation and the pain that Eddie Fisher went through? This woman is his wife, and the media has dubbed her a nickname with another man. Can you imagine that? Baby, Eddie Fisher was at home brokenhearted, just like his ex-wife was. Now it was him sitting up there on the couch crying and huddled up and with a tissue box right beside him. But listen at this. Gossip says that Eddie wasn't finna give his woman up so fast, honey. So it said that he called Richard Burton and was like, hey, you need to back off of Elizabeth. That's my woman. And Richard Burton was like, boy, what you gonna do about it then, sir? Do something about it then. And so Eddie was like, oh, I'm gonna do something about it. So supposedly Eddie went up to Richard Burton's apartment, and baby, they just got the fighting, honey. They was just a tussle. And child, Richard bust Eddie all upside his doggone head, child. Just a yaga. So Eddie had fought for his woman and he had lost. Richard Burton was now the man for Elizabeth Taylor, and y'all, let me tell y'all some juicy gossip surrounding this situation, honey. Now listen at this. Don't you know that folks were saying when Eddie Fisher got inside of that apartment with Richard Burton, after Richard Burton bust him upside his doggone head, they said that Richard Burton told Eddie Fisher, hey, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way. You lost the fight and you know what you got to do. Baby, they say he told Eddie Fisher to drop him, baby. And they say Eddie Fisher was so scared he did drop him. Honey told him to drop the pants, lean over the bed. Next thing you know, they say the cheeks was clapping to the beat, baby. But before we move on, the thing about this rumor, though, is that it said that Richard, after he had got done doing all that with Eddie, he came to Elizabeth Taylor and told her about it. Woo! Child. So after this, Eddie did not put up another fight, and he and Liz divorced in March of 1964, and 10 days later, she marries Richard Burton. And with Liz and Dick together, their relationship is tabloid fodder. They are constantly in the news because they are a mess with each other. On the one hand, they lived a very wild, very crazy jet-set lifestyle. They spent millions on furs, diamonds, painting, designer clothes, travel, food, liquor. They even bought a yacht and a jet. They were also rumored to indulge each other's fantasies. You know, it's said that they had many affairs on each other, you know, many threesomes. They did a lot of swinging, even reported that they had an open marriage. On the other hand, they had a seriously passive-aggressive, emotionally abusive, love-hate relationship. For one, Richard turned out to be a much harder man than Liz thought he was going to be. He may have reminded her of Mike Todd by the way he looked and built and all that kind of stuff, but honey, he was definitely not going to just fawn and fall all over her. She was not the jewel of his eye. As a matter of fact, sometimes he was downright cruel to Elizabeth Taylor. Honey, he used to have her name all drug out in these streets. He used to talk about her in public. One time it's even said that he did an interview and the woman was basically like, how do you feel being married to one of the most beautiful women in the world? And Richard Burton was like, the most beautiful woman in the world? Who, Liz? No, I've seen regular women that are not even in the industry that look better than Liz Taylor. Liz is not all of that. She got kind of like a double chin. She ain't really shaped up that good and just saying all this kind of stuff. And then she used to taunt him with comments, possibly even saying stuff like, yeah, you might have beat Eddie up, but one thing about it, you ain't hanging like Eddie. You ain't putting it down like Eddie. It's not no telling what she could have said. And then 10 minutes after that, swoosh, they are laying in the bed having the most passionate love-making session ever in the world. And see, this is what I'm saying. They actually really did have a love-hate relationship. When they loved each other with all of their hearts. But when they hated each other, they really, really hated each other, like for real. And they were so high-strung that they could experience both of those emotions in the same day. Heck, probably even in the same hour. And so this was their life. And sooner or later, their energy was just spent. You know what I'm saying? They were just tired and all of this stuff just really got old to them and they could not stand the sight of each other. So they ended up getting a divorce on June 1974. And then right after the divorce, they missed each other. What were they thinking splitting up? They were the only ones for each other. So then they got remarried. That happened in October of 1975. And then after that, they were like, why did I get back with this person? I hate this person's gut. And then they divorced again in July 1976. And the whole Liz and Dick situation was such a huge fiasco that the media dubbed them the marriage of the century, Liz and Dick. And for Liz, it turned out to not only be the marriage of the century, but it also was the marriage of her life. And I'll explain that to you in just a minute. So after Liz and Dick divorced for the second time, she ends up marrying again. And this man's name is John Warner, and he is a Republican politician. But soon, she found the life of a politician's wife very, very boring. It was not at all what she thought it was going to be. And so really, she became depressed at this time, and she started to gain weight. She started to drink more, and to take her mind off of the fact that she felt trapped, she also started to add prescription drugs to that alcohol. So Liz and John had married in 1976, and by 1982, they were divorced. But even after her divorce from John Warner, her addiction to prescription pills and alcohol and who knows what else was still very bad. She still had a huge problem with that. So she started to go to rehab, and it was actually while she was checked into the Betty Ford Center that she ended up meeting her 7th husband. This guy was really just a regular Joe. He was a construction worker, and his name was Larry Fortinsky. And see, the funny thing about this is, see, on this marriage, Liz had done a flip-flop. She had changed because, see, usually she had wanted a man that was older than her. But see, now her little behind was getting old her doggone self. So this Larry Fortinsky guy was way, way younger than her. And because of the fact that it was Liz Taylor and she was actually marrying a nobody, and also because the wedding took place at the Neverland Ranch, Michael Jackson's house, this wedding was a huge media event. As a matter of fact, paparazzi and other media wanted pictures so bad they were salivating. Elizabeth Taylor was able to sell her wedding pictures for $1 million. That's how much interest was generated into this wedding. They married in 1991 and they were divorced in 1996. So that was Liz's final marriage. And although she may have felt something for this husband and the husband before him, the reason I said that her marriage to Richard Burton when she was Liz and Dick, the reason I said that was the marriage of her life is because Liz was quoted saying that everybody that I was in a relationship with or whoever I married after Dick, they were just there to hold my coat or open the door. All of those men were really just company. They didn't really mean a thing after Richard. And that's why her relationship with Richard Burton is still so talked about today. They've had several movies, Liz and Dick movies. Everybody is just always talking about their relationship because it was just so intense. But to get back to her career, throughout the 50s and the 60s, Liz was still very popular, and in the 1970s, she was mostly uprooted by younger and more beautiful actresses. Now, gossip says that Liz Taylor did not want this to happen. You know what I mean? She tried to fight this, and so she tried the whole "I'm Liz Taylor" fiasco, and she ended up embarrassing her little behind because the little movies that she did put out in the 70s, they were flops. Now, by the time the 1980s came around, she did indeed decide to give the films a rest, and she started to do stage work. She also started to do TV. And as far as the stage, she starred in a play called Private Life. And this production saw Liz and her ex-husband Richard Burton to come together for the very last time to star in this play. It premiered in Boston in 1983, and it did do well commercially, but the reviews they got were horrible, child. I mean, them folks was tearing their behinds up. They basically said that Liz and Dick looked weary. Looked like they had a lot on their mind, child. Said they looked run down and older than their years. They also said they looked like they were in poor health. Like they needed to go to a doctor instead of being on the stage. But the thing about these reviews is that they were absolutely right. Liz and Dick were in very poor health. For one, Liz was still hooked on prescription drugs and alcohol, so she went shortly after that and checked herself into the Betty Ford Clinic. And as far as Richard Burton, he actually passed away the very next year. And then after that, she mainly kept to herself. She did a little bit of TV work, and she also started doing philanthropic work by helping with HIV and AIDS charities. But outside of doing this, like I said, Liz just mostly kept to herself. But honey, Liz popped out of the shadows like, "Booyah, I'm back." And that is when she was seen escorting the king of pop, and also when she awarded him in 1984. Baby, as soon as folks saw her with Michael Jackson, pictures started snapping. But baby, this was just the tip of the iceberg, honey. Liz would be show enough popping a little while after that. She came out with Elizabeth Taylor's White Diamond. And with this fragrance, she had really reinvented herself because, honey, women all over the world jumped at the chance to be able to smell like Elizabeth Taylor. Her perfume made her millions of dollars, and Liz was once again the talk of the town. I did read somewhere where it said that Michael Jackson was totally and fully obsessed with Liz Taylor. Not only did he meet her, they became very, very close friends, and Michael Jackson spent a lot of money on Liz Taylor. It is said that he bought her all type of precious jewels. Child gossip even goes so far that it said that he had a room in his house in the Neverland Ranch that was called the Elizabeth Taylor room, or the Liz room. Girl, but why come the folks out here talking about some, yeah, Michael bought her a lot of stuff, but she bought him something too? They ain't gonna sit up there and say, one time he had bought her a 17-karat diamond ring, and guess what Liz bought him? An elephant, girl. Time I gave him an elephant named Gypsy. Ma'am, no ma'am, I'm gonna need you to come with something better than that. I done bought you a 17-karat diamond ring, and you done sat up here and sent the elephant over here? But child, I guess Liz saw Bubbles and thought that Michael was an animal freak. I don't know, child. Oh, let me say this too. It is claimed that Liz has such a hold over Michael Jackson, such a control over him, that Catherine got upset, honey. Catherine said, I don't know what's going on and what Liz Taylor think, but Michael is my son, not hers. Baby, Liz better back it up. She better back it up, for Catherine Jackson had to put the hands on her. Whatever the case, Michael and Elizabeth Taylor did end up straying away from each other because Michael ended up getting more and more, way more famous than what he was when they met. So they kind of had to stray apart a little bit, but it said that he always held a close place into Elizabeth Taylor's heart, and when he passed away in 2009, she was absolutely heartbroken. By the time Michael did pass away, Liz by now was about 77 years old, and she definitely was not on anybody's movie screen. As a matter of fact, she had been in poor health for a number of years. It said in the year 2004 she was diagnosed with congestive heart failure and was actually still suffering with these complications when she ended up passing away on March 23rd, 2011. She was 79 years old. Now we are at the end of Miss Elizabeth Taylor's life, but of course there is more tea to be found, honey, and let me get into it. And I want to make a point to say most of this tea that I'm about to tell you now came from the book that was written about Liz. Now, first things first, rumor has it that Elizabeth Taylor loved homosexual men. She loved gay men. She loved having friendships with them. She loved being around them. And gossip says that she loved them so much that about 5 of the men that she married were either gay or they were bisexual. And then there's this one story that it's claimed was told by one of her gay friends and that he was telling everybody about her. So supposedly they were both just chilling at her house, okay? And then Liz started to come on to him and he was like, no, I don't want to do that. Then he left. Well, don't you know he said that Liz went through a deep depression and, she called him and she was crying and, she just didn't want to live anymore or any of that because he was not attracted to her. And he was trying to explain to her, like, I'm not really attracted to any woman. And she was like, no, it's only me. You've let me know I'm not beautiful anymore and all of this good stuff. Baby, it said that she acted like that until he came back over her house one day and put the pipe down on her. Immediately after they were done, that is when she felt better. And let's move on to this next little bit of tea, honey, because supposedly Ronald Reagan is not the only president that Elizabeth Taylor slept with. Y'all know it's gossip out here to say that she slept with JFK too. And honey, for this next little bit of tea, we gonna need some dun 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 dun. Do y'all know where that music come from? Baby, unsolved mysteries, honey. Because yes, child, the host Robert Stack, when he was younger, it's claimed that he slept with Elizabeth Taylor too. And then get this, honey, it's finna get heavy. Because it's claimed that not only did he sleep with her, he and JFK actually had a threesome with her and slept with her at the same time. It is also claimed that she slept with Marlon Brando. And some feel like she slept with Montgomery Clift, but I do not believe this because it's also said that she wanted to, but Montgomery Clift would not give in to her. Because rumor has it that Montgomery Clift was actually a gay man himself, and that is why he did not give in to Elizabeth Taylor. But girl, what if Montgomery Clift is the one from that other rumor? What if he the gay man that told her no when she got depressed and he actually did give it to her? Y'all, child, the next rumor gets even messier than this. It is claimed that on Elizabeth Taylor's honeymoon, when she had married her first husband, Conrad Nicky Hilton, it's claimed that while she was on her honeymoon, she had a tryst with Prince Rainier, which was Grace Kelly's future husband. It's also said that she had a sexual relationship with Tony Curtis. And check this out. The next rumor says that Elizabeth Taylor slept around with Frank Sinatra, and she actually fell in love with Frank Sinatra, and she wanted to marry Frank Sinatra. And so she called him one day, and Frank is like, hello, and Elizabeth is like, I think we really need to get married, Frank. And Frank is like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I'm pregnant, Frank. We have a baby on the way, and I think we need to get married. Child, you know what Frank Sinatra told her? He told her, girl, here goes some money to get rid of the baby. You can go ahead and have an abortion because I'm not finna marry you. And so she didn't have the abortion because she wasn't really pregnant. She was lying, and, it just didn't work out. And then let's get to another little thing of tea. Child, the old Hollywood streets say that after Elizabeth Taylor's husband, Mike Todd, passed away, Eddie Fisher was not the only man that she was sleeping with. It is said that she was sleeping with Paul Newman around that time too. And after he had slept with her, it said that he got up out of the bed and he thought to himself, like, I can't do this. And he told her, I cannot do this. I don't want to be the next Mr. Elizabeth Taylor. And also, I have a wife, I have a family. I don't want to do this with you. I cannot be with you. And so he left her crying on the bed. And then listen to this little bit of tea, baby. They said Elizabeth Taylor was paid, honey. She was one of the top paid actresses because she demanded $1 million to film the movie. And then from the sales after that, she still got a profit. Other actresses and other actors even were not getting this. Then this last rumor is a little bit of pettiness, honey, and it's not coming from Elizabeth, baby. It's coming from Eddie Fisher. Honey, Eddie Fisher was so ticked off about her cheating on him, baby. He tried to have the last laugh, honey. And that is when he wrote a skit about Elizabeth Taylor called Cleo, the Nympho of the Now. Basically trying to have a little skit, saying that she loved all the men and she couldn't be faithful. She was a cheater. She was this. But baby, the tee-hee-hee was on him because ain't nobody knew nothing about that skit. Wasn't nobody paying to see the skit, nothing. So, sir, you could have just left that to yourself. But anyways, y'all, this is the end of the old Hollywood scandalous tale from Miss Elizabeth Taylor. Go ahead, click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And no matter what, I'm going to push through everything for my Scandalites and my Says So squad. Love you guys so much. Bye, y'all.